It's hard to believe it's been almost 20 years since we began this journey. We had church everywhere in the early days: theaters, hotels, community centers, anywhere that would give us a space to meet. We used to say, if you can find us, you can attend. Eventually, we did find a place to call home, an old fitness center. We called it the gym. It wasn't much, but it was ours. It was at the gym where things really took off for us. This was quite an exciting time. We were growing up together as a church family, and numerically, we were growing, and growing fast. We finally decided 5 services in a tiny renovated gym was enough, so we sought God, and He provided us with a beautiful piece of land right next to Dollywood. We built a building, it won a national award, and 2,000 people showed up for our first Sunday. We were doing all the right things by the American church's standards. Everything looked good from the outside. But eventually, we ended up having to surrender our building to the bank due to major financial problems during the recession of 2008. More importantly, we had to leave and give up the land that God had promised us. What felt like the end was only the beginning. This was our test. We lost 90% of our church congregation. We went from this auditorium to this auditorium. It felt like we were starting over. We couldn't even afford a sign for our new building when we moved into this strip mall. It was hard. But we promised God we wouldn't give up. After all, this was never about a building. We had to come face to face with the question, is Jesus enough? That was 5 years ago that we moved here. We moved across town with only 70 people left in our church. We had 1,200 people who called the gathering home when we built our facility. But less than 100 people stayed when we started over beside this bar. God began doing a major work in the hearts and lives of those who stayed. It was evident that He was teaching us something important. He was teaching us about the rewards of prayer. We learned to seek the Lord personally and also as a corporate family. Life change began to happen in that remnant. It was in this place where we truly fell in love with Jesus. We learned that He really is enough. The last 5 years haven't always been the easiest. We've learned a lot about ourselves and about who God has called the gathering to be. We are not a perfect people, but we have done everything we can to seek after God's plan for our house. And God has been so faithful to us in every way. We can now confidently say we desire His plans above ours. Fast forward to today. We open our doors to pray and worship 3 times a day, 7 days a week. Every day, people have the opportunity to come into this prayer room to pray, worship, and encounter Jesus like never before. Why? Because He's worthy. Because Jesus Himself said, "My house shall be called a house of prayer." Because when we minister to His heart, He ministers to ours, and our spirits and minds are renewed. When we seek His kingdom first, He takes care of all of the other issues in our life. His way is always so much better than ours. His plan for the house of prayer meets every need and desire of our individual lives and in His church. This is what the Lord is raising up in the earth. We are able to pay every single one of our worship leaders that come and minister to the very heart of God, just like King David did. Out of this ministry flows many other amazing ministries like our prophetic rooms and healing rooms. We are currently giving 30 cents on the dollar to missions. We are blessed to partner with people who are carrying the gospel to China, Nepal, Uganda, South Africa, and more. We have a school that educates and houses over 200 children in rural Uganda. And we're opening prayer rooms in each of these places, doing our part to come into alignment with God's end-time plan for the church.
What God will do is cause victory for us. When this style of worship and prayer is going on in our churches, victory will come for nations. We will not be defeated.
Not only do we have a tremendous commitment to international missions, we also place a heavy focus on local missions. We have a food pantry that sits at the end of this strip mall that feeds well over 1,000 families in our community each month, and this ministry is growing quicker than we could have ever imagined. As you can see, God has made it abundantly clear that He is not finished with us. God has brought new energy, resources, and people to carry the vision of our house, to worship and pray day and night, and to raise up more houses of prayer around the world.
What if God would raise up right here on the Parkway a place, a house that 24/7 there was uninterrupted prayer? He will not raise that up with people that walk in pride. He will only trust that anointing to people that have been humbled.
The truth is, a lot of people thought we weren't going to make it. They gave up on us. But the reality is, this incredible story that God is writing here has only just begun, and it is going to take all of us to finish what God has called us to do. Each one of us plays an essential part, and without you, none of this would have been possible. Through the highs and through the lows, you never gave up.
The gospel is so good, it's too good to be true.
You haven't lost heart. You've kept the faith. And because of your commitment to the vision of this house, God has done more than we ever thought possible. So as we look to the future, we are expectant. We are believing for even greater things. And as we stand together in unity, we can be assured God's promise is still alive.